You have to consider possibilities with which we are really uncomfortable. You know, as a rational society, we're uncomfortable thinking about what else could be out there. But some of these situations are so unusual, you have to think beyond the bounds of what's normal, what's a normal explanation for this.
What is up, all you beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we are going to be talking about missing 411, otherwise known as when people go missing in national parks under very strange circumstances. The missing 411 phenomenon was really brought to the public's attention by a man named David Paulides. Now, David is a retired detective, and he spends his time now investigating mysterious disappearances from national parks, essentially. If you are new to all of this information, I am so sorry, you guys, because when I found out about this a couple years ago, it absolutely fascinated me, but it terrified me all in the same breath. And after you learn about this, you will never want to go out into the wilderness by yourself again. In reality, we should not be hiking alone or camping alone because it's not safe. I have been guilty of doing this on many occasions when people wouldn't go hiking with me, but I will never do that again. David Paulides has gone on to write 4 books about the missing 411 phenomenon. His books were actually adapted into a movie as well.
I'm Edna, Keith's mother. I was visiting my parents in Ritter, Oregon, and so I said, "Oh, where's your brother?" And he said, "Oh, he went around the barn." Then we went back to find him, and he wasn't there.
According to Oregon State Police, there are 41 missing children in Oregon.
It's an unknown what happened to these people. It extends far beyond just kids.
Hundreds of people vanished from our national parks and forests under very unusual but very similar circumstances.
In a lot of these cases, search and rescue, or the volunteers searching people, have already gone over certain areas, not once, not twice, but even dozens of times. And then the child is found there, maybe a year, maybe a few years later.
Disclaimer though, there is a plethora of information on this topic. You can go so deep on the internet, so I'm doing just a little synopsis of it. If you're curious about this topic, I would definitely encourage you to watch the Missing 411 movie or read some of David Paulides' books. David Paulides is quoted saying, "People disappear in the wilderness all the time. We're talking about something different here. These are unusual things and don't make sense. They usually happen in clusters of 3 or 4, with up to as many as 20 to 30 people going missing in one particular location." And I will throw up a map of where he thinks these clusters are that people disappear from. These mysterious disappearances that fall under the 411 category happen to children, adults, the elderly, so it's not one particular age. A lot of times, the children that disappear have some kind of disability. And it is almost as if these people are plucked out of thin air, and it's very creepy. It's so creepy, you guys. I'm laughing because I'm nervous. What is so interesting, though, is the national parks have no database for these missing people, but it is estimated to be about 1,600 people that have gone missing from our national parks. It has been speculated by David Paulides and many others that our government does not want to have a database with the exact number of people that have gone missing because they don't want to deter people from going to these national parks and stopping their coin. And I would not put it past the government to do something like that. If a person goes missing in a national park, here are some of the criteria that would label them under the missing 411 category. Number 1, canine cannot track the scent of the missing person, or they do catch the scent and it stops abruptly in kind of a random area. Number 2, if a victim is found with their clothing removed. The items usually removed are pants, shoes, and boots. 3, the person's body is found a far distance away from where they vanished from. Oftentimes, children are found at an elevation that would be impossible for them to get to on their own. But it would also land you under the 411 category if you were with a group of people and it's as if they turned around and you were just gone, which has happened a lot in these cases that I've looked at. I want to talk about one of the most popular missing 411 cases, and that is the disappearance and death of Jaryd Atadero. Jaryd was a beautiful baby boy who would go missing when he was only 3 years old. He went missing on October 2nd, 1999, from Roosevelt National Forest in Colorado. Jaryd's dad, Alan, owned a lodge near this forest, and at the time of Jaryd's disappearance, there was a church group staying at the lodge, and they were actually trading labor for room and board. On October 2nd, this group of about 11 people wanted to go on a little hike near a fish hatchery, and this hike was only 1.5 miles away from the lodge, and they wanted Jaryd and his sister Jocelyn to accompany them. Jocelyn was older than Jaryd, so Alan agreed to let her go, but he was reluctant to let Jaryd go because he was only 3 years old. But this group assured Alan that they would watch Jaryd like a hawk and take care of him, and he didn't have to worry about anything. Jaryd obviously really wanted to go with this group, and he was crying and begging his dad to let him go. And eventually Alan caved and let Jaryd go with these people. It's very sad because I'm sure it is his biggest regret in life. So apparently this group drove to the location of the chill little hike and decided they wanted something more strenuous. So they went 16 miles, or it was 16 miles away from the lodge, to a 7-mile hike, which a 3-year-old should not be going on a 7-mile hike, but they thought that this would be a good idea, and they proceeded on. When the group started the hike, they decided to split into 2 separate groups, the faster people in front and the slower people behind. Jaryd was leading the pack, and while he was walking, he met 2 fishermen. These men hiked with Jaryd for some time until a fork came in the road. These men needed to take a left to get to the body of water to fish, and you needed to go right to continue on the hiking trail. The men looked behind them and saw the fast group of people and claimed that they were only 50 to 80 feet away from where they stood. So they left Jaryd there and went on their way. Jaryd has never been seen since. These adults' behavior is suspicious to me, if I can be honest, because I have a 3-year-old niece, and if I went hiking with her, I wouldn't let her out of my sight for 1 second, and I wouldn't let her hike with people I didn't know. But yeah, that's something to take into account as well. It was baffling to everyone involved in the search for Jaryd that absolutely nothing turned up, because this is a 3-year-old little boy. How far could he have gotten on his own? And nothing would turn up until 4 years later, when 2 avid hikers were going up a 500-foot boulder field around this area when they came across some of Jaryd's clothing.
Well, we're at 9,125 feet, about 550 feet above the trail where Jaryd disappeared and the location of his final resting place. This is the area where search and rescue found 1 tooth and the top of his cranium. They found his pants inside out, and they also found his sweatshirt essentially in one piece. They also found 2 shoes, and the shoes show an interesting part of the story in that they almost look brand new, not showing the wearer 4 years in the winter. Now, the climb we just made up this hillside is truly remarkable, because my partner and I had to get on our hands and knees to make that climb. We had to stop numerous times, and it was almost an unbelievable trek to get up here with the equipment. The idea that a boy was possibly in the mouth of a mountain lion or a bear and made that journey, especially knowing that Jaryd's pants and his shoes were on him when he left the trail, knowing that his shoes were not tied. His dad even said that the shoes never would have made the journey up the side of this hill because they weren't tied and they would have fallen off. So it really makes the mind wonder, how did Jaryd get up here knowing that the shoes were untied, loose on his feet? He didn't like to wear shoes. And yet he made it up, his remains made it up the side of this hill, intact. His 2 shoes, pants, and his shirt. His shirt was never found. His sweatshirt was found.
His clothes were way too intact to have been in the Colorado mountains for 4 winters. Law enforcement's theory on what happened to Jaryd is that he was attacked by a mountain lion. That is right, people, a mountain lion. This theory does not hold up though, because no mountain lion is going to methodically take off a child's clothes before attacking them. Also, his clothes were tested for blood and hair, and they were absent of both. And quite frankly, it's insulting to Jaryd's family because this baby was not attacked by a mountain lion. I mean, I'm not even a professional, and I can look at this and say that with confidence. The laziest police work I think I have ever seen, and I have seen a lot of lazy police work in my time and just in my own personal life with my sister missing, and they were very quick to push this narrative and wanted to just close the case, and that is so unfair to this baby boy. Alan has gone on to try to find justice for Jaryd. He has a lot of his own theories on what happened to him. He actually believes that Jaryd was sexually abused, and that explains why his pants were turned inside out. It's been over 20 years since Jaryd went missing, and his disappearance and death still remain unexplained. Another disappearance I want to talk about is that of 73-year-old John Devine. He was elderly at the time of his disappearance, but he was an experienced hiker. He set out to hike Mount Baldy on September 7th, 1997. This mountain is about a 7,000-foot climb and extremely steep. It is located in the Olympic National Park in Washington State. If you guys don't know, I'm from Washington State, and I've actually been to this place, which is crazy. John was camping with a friend during this time. His friend had decided to go hunting for the day, and John set out to hike Mount Baldy. No one knows what happened on that hike, but John would never return. His friend obviously became concerned and contacted authorities. Search efforts for John were pretty extensive, and they lasted a full week. Something really crazy that happened during the search for John was that a rescue helicopter crashed. The crash ended up killing 3 people and injuring 5. People claim that before takeoff, the pilot used a hand signal indicating that he was going to wait 5 minutes for conditions to clear up before attempting to take off. But right after this hand signal, the helicopter took off vertically without any warning and crashed into the side of a mountain. Which is so creepy, and all search efforts were canceled after this because they claimed that it was just getting too dangerous, obviously, to continue to search for John. John would be one of 4 people to mysteriously vanish from this area in a 25-year span, and this is one of the clusters that David Paulides talks about. There are at least 1,400 of these stories, so I couldn't possibly cover all of them on my channel. These were just 2 that I found really interesting when I was researching for this video. I want to do more in-depth videos on this topic though, so give me a thumbs up if that's something you guys would like to see. Let's get into theories on these disappearances. So it is important to note that David Paulides has written books on Bigfoot and Bigfoot's existence in the US. He has never openly said, though, that he thinks these disappearances are connected to Bigfoot. He presents the information to the reader or viewer and lets them make up their own mind about it, which I think is so awesome. And Bigfoot really could be a possibility. I lean more on the side of Bigfoot not being real, but who knows? Another theory is that serial killers are responsible for these disappearances, which is one that I believed for a long time. I thought this would be a perfect scenario to kidnap someone, because there are not enough resources to look for that person. It costs so much money to administer search and rescue, and often you have to be experienced to search some of the terrain in national parks. But if it was a serial killer, they would have to have literally impeccable timing. When these people disappear, you don't hear them scream oftentimes, and there is no sign of a struggle. Other theories include child sex trafficking rings, alien abductions, and people simply becoming lost. My personal theory on why so many people disappear without a trace in these national parks is really out there and requires a thinking cap. So I listened to so many stories of people having crazy experiences in the wilderness. One story I hear time and time again is that there are portals out in the forest. Stay with me here, you guys. Oh, he's got a toy. One story in particular was from a man who claimed he was hiking a trail with a group of people. He noticed his shoe was untied, so he bent down to tie it. And when he stood back up, he was in a completely different location in the forest. He had no idea where he was, and his group that he was hiking with was nowhere in sight. A lot of people have claimed that they've experienced this, and oftentimes they say there's no sound. So there's no sound of birds, it's just completely silent, and you all know that usually means there's a predator. And they say that they feel the most ominous feeling, like a complete sense of dread and horror, and like they're being watched. This man in particular, though, said he ran like hell and eventually met back up with his group, and they didn't even notice he was gone. So it's been theorized that time stops when you're in one of these portals. I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but for some reason I just believe it. Could possibly be in a parallel universe where some real sinister stuff is going on. Obviously, there is no proof of these portals or parallel universes or anything like that, but I've looked at so many of these cases and I think something really unexplainable is happening, and maybe it's beyond our comprehension. Maybe it's something we're not really supposed to understand. It is fun to kind of come up with theories because it's such a mysterious occurrence, but at the end of the day, these people are still missing and their families are left without answers, which is so sad, and my heart really, really goes out to them. Let's talk about this in the comments below because I'm so interested to hear what you guys think about it. Like I said, it's absolutely terrifying and fascinating all at the same time. But that is it for me today, you guys. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you on my next video, okay? Bye.
I think one of the most impressive was a search in South Dakota. It was for a little toddler that had wandered away, and this was, I forget, it was January, February. It was cold weather, and we could not get any clues on the little toddler at all. It had been like 3 days, so we knew it was probably not going to be a good result. Anyway, we were, to make a long story short, coming through some willows, and it was all foggy, and the dogs were alerting, but we could not come to any, conclusion. And all of a sudden, my dog turned around and just let out a real startled howl, just it was scared. And we turned around, and here was this little toddler walking out of the fog with just absolutely no clothes on at all.